It's officially summer. If your holiday travels are taking you to the Great White North, and you're looking for an experience that you won't find in any travel brochure, you needn't wander far from the beaten path. Beneath Canada's most celebrated destinations lies an undercurrent of dark mystery and forgotten folklore. A tapestry of tales that cast an eerie light on Canada's postcard tableaus, which lend themselves to adventures perfect for travelers with a taste for the uncanny. In this series, we will explore the hidden mysteries of Canada's top 10 tourist attractions. If you'd like to watch this video without ads, please consider becoming a member of this channel and watching the ads-free version instead. You can do this on your phone or desktop by clicking the picture of my face and then clicking the join button to the right of the subscribe button. Since times are tough, I've decided to add a lower membership tier, which will give you access to my members-only videos for only $1 Canadian per month, or about 72 American cents. Sorry for the interruption, and enjoy the video. Canada's best-known destination is undeniably the Niagara Falls, a tremendous trio of cascades which straddle the border of Ontario and New York. Although two of these waterfalls, the American Falls and the Bridal Veil Falls, lie entirely on the American side of the divide, the greater portion of Horseshoe Falls, the largest and most spectacular of the three, repose on the Canadian side. For 180 years, various ferries which have carried passengers to the base of Niagara Falls have borne the name Maid of the Mists. A charming sobriquet alluding to the perpetual fog that enshrouds that part of the Niagara River, this name doubles as an homage to a haunting native legend connected with Horseshoe Falls. Like all great folk tales, there are several different versions of this ancient story, a campfire tale of the Seneca Iroquois. According to one iteration which appears in American folklorist Erminie Adele Smith's 1983 book, Myths of the Iroquois, long ago, a beautiful Indian maiden was about to be compelled by her family to marry a hideous old Indian. Despair was in her heart. She knew that there was no escape for her, so in desperation, she leapt into her canoe and pushed it from shore on the roaring waters of the Niagara. She heeded not that she was going to her death, preferring the angry waters to the arms of her detested lover. As she plunged over the falls in her birch bark canoe, hurtling towards certain destruction, the maiden was caught by Hinu, the thunder god, who had watched her desperate act from concealment in the mist. Hinu brought the woman to his home, hidden behind the waterfall. The grateful Indian girl lived for many weeks in Hinu's cave, Smith wrote. There, the thunder god told her about an enormous venomous snake that dwelt in the earth beneath her people's village, wreaking sickness and death. When the woman's elderly suitor died from this very cause, Hinu returned the girl to her people, bidding her to urge the villagers to relocate so as to escape the serpent's influence. The maiden did as she was told, and convinced her kinsmen to rebuild their settlement on the shores of northerly Lake Ontario. Having developed a taste for human flesh, the great serpent decided to follow his victims to their new home. No sooner had he emerged from his subterranean lair than Hinu struck him with a lightning bolt. A terrible noise awoke all the dwellers by the lake, Smith wrote, but the snake was only injured, not killed. Hinu was forced to launch another thunderbolt, and another, before finally the poisoner was slain. Hinu swept the serpent's corpse into the Niagara River, where it floated towards the falls like a series of enormous islands. His corpse was too large to pass the rocks, Smith wrote, so it became wedged in between them, and the waters rose over it mountains high. As the weight of the monster pressed on the rocks, they gave way, and thus the horseshoe form that remains to this day was fashioned. Some say that, if you look closely at the mist that drifts up from Horseshoe Falls, you can see the image of the maiden whom Hinu saved. If you drive to the northern outskirts of Niagara Falls on the Queen Elizabeth Highway, take the Mountain Road exit, turn right on Garner Road, and take another right on Warner Road, you'll arrive at the mouth of a small limestone corridor known as the Screaming Tunnel. Built in the early 1900s for drainage purposes, this dark 125-foot-long passageway is the setting of one of Canada's eeriest urban legends. According to a local tale which has several different versions, the tunnel owes its name to a tragic event, usually dated to the turn of the 20th century. In one of the less horrific versions of the story, a nearby farmhouse caught fire one night, and the girl stumbled from the inferno, suffering from appalling burns. Her nightgown ablaze, she staggered into the tunnel, perhaps hoping to find help on the other side of the railroad. She never made it to the other side, collapsing and dying in the darkness of that rough-hewn underpass. Ever since, disembodied shrieks, as of a girl in agony, have been heard emanating from the tunnel at night. Legend has it that if you enter the screaming tunnel at midnight and light a wooden match, something will blow your match out, and a blood-chilling scream will reverberate throughout the passageway. If you travel a short distance down the Niagara River from the falls to Lake Ontario, you'll come to a cozy little town, aptly named Niagara-on-the-Lake. Originally called Newark, this historic settlement, which once served as a capital of Upper Canada, is purported to be a hotspot of paranormal activity, and is widely regarded as the most haunted town in Canada. Most of Niagara-on-the-Lake's alleged ghosts are said to be remnants of the War of 1812, a 2.5-year conflict fought between the United States and British Canada, in which adjacent Fort George played a pivotal role. Today, a replica of Fort George, built in the footprint of the original stronghold, is said to be haunted by a host of specters, thought to be the spirits of its former occupants. One of these is the ghost of a watchman, whom legend says froze to death in the winter of 1811, whose apparition paces the sentry box at the exact height at which the original parapets once stood. Another of the fort's ghostly inhabitants is a little girl, perhaps the spirit of an officer's daughter, who teases tourists by tugging on their clothes and playing hide-and-seek in the officers' mess. Ghostly soldiers wearing bicorn hats are said to haunt a building called the Octagonal Blockhouse, as well as an underground tunnel which connects that structure with the Powder magazine. Other former residents of Fort George are said to still abide in the town itself. Among the most famous of these are a star-crossed couple, said to haunt a charming bed and breakfast known as the Brockamore Manor. A pair identified as the spirits of Sir Isaac Brock, a major general in the British Army, and his betrothed, Sophia Shaw. Dubbed the Hero of Canada for his stunning victory at Fort Detroit, in which he and Shawnee Chief Tecumseh captured a much larger American invading force through military deception and psychological warfare, Sir Isaac Brock was said to be intimately familiar with Newark, and in love with one of its residents. Legend has it that the 42-year-old commander was quietly engaged to Sophia Shaw, the 19-year-old daughter of Major General Aeneas Shaw of the Upper Canada Militia, who lived in Newark with her married sister and the latter's husband, Militia Captain John Powell. Whenever Brock's duties allowed him R&R in the Fort George area, the Powell family home was the site of many a happy rendezvous. After Brock's capture of Fort Detroit, American troops marched to the eastern shores of the Niagara River in preparation for an invasion of Upper Canada, compelling the Major General to make defensive preparations at Fort George. The Americans launched their invasion on the morning of October 13, 1812, their first wave crossing the Niagara and capturing a promontory called Queenston Heights, which lay several kilometers upriver from the fort. Hoping to recapture the hill before the rest of the invading force crossed the river, and unwilling to wait for reinforcements from Fort George, Brock led a small force of British regulars who had accompanied him to the scene in a daring charge uphill. These troops were repelled, and Brock himself was killed by an American sharpshooter. Despite this loss, a combined force of British regulars, Canadian militia, and their Iroquois allies managed to retake the heights later that day and thwart the invasion. Legend has it that, after the battle, a heartbroken Sophia Shaw, bereft of her gallant betrothed, plunged into a deep depression. She spent the rest of her days as a recluse in the home of Captain Powell, never marrying. Today, the Powell home serves as a bed and breakfast called Brockamore Manor, its name being a reference to the romance that once blossomed beneath its roof, and which may still flourish there today. Some say that the spirit of Sir Isaac Brock returned to the manor after the Battle of Queenston Heights, to be reunited with Sophia's at her own earthly departure. Sophia is said to make her presence known to guests by singing at the top of the stairs, opening and closing doors at night, and materializing near her favorite armoire. Every once in a while, a misty vision of a red-coated army officer and a Georgian lady clasped arm in arm is said to appear in the rose gardens before vanishing into thin air. Other ghostly residents of Niagara-on-the-Lake are said to owe their presence to a second American invasion, which took place on May 25, 1813. That day, U.S. warships traveled up the Niagara River and unleashed a 2-day cannon bombardment on Fort George, barraging its bastions with heated shot, which reduced the palisaded complex to a smoking ruin. On May 27th, 4,000 American soldiers disembarked on the shores of Lake Ontario to the northwest, captured the remains of Fort George, and occupied the neighboring town of Newark, forcing British soldiers and Canadian militia to retreat west to what is now the city of Hamilton. According to legend, during the retreat, Captain Colin Swayze of the Upper Canada Militia broke from his troops to visit his billet house, a cozy tavern known at the time as the Harmonious Coach House. The officer hoped to bid farewell to a certain barmaid with whom he had fallen in love. The star-crossed couple enjoyed a few tender moments together, but before the officer could steal away to join his regiment, American soldiers overran the inn. A panicked Captain Swayze, at the barmaid's insistence, fled to the cellar and concealed himself within a barrel. In an effort to root out British deserters, American infantrymen searched every corner of the tavern. In the cellar, they thrust the bayonets affixed to the ends of their muskets into burlap sacks, dark recesses, and other potential hiding places. One soldier threw off the lid of the barrel in which Captain Swayze was hiding and plunged his bayonet into the lovesick officer. Colin Swayze succumbed to his wound. An old legend, which dates back to at least the autumn of 1813, reports that the ghost of Colin Swayze never left the cellar and has haunted the Harmonious Coach House ever since. Today, the tavern continues to serve its original function under the name the Old Angel Inn, a cozy establishment with a British-style pub that serves local ales and exceptional steak and onion pie. Predictably, the ghost of Captain Swayze retains his domicile among such familiar surroundings, regularly making his presence known to staff and visitors alike. Guests staying in the Colonel's room have reported hearing strange noises at night. Inn staff sometimes open the dining room in the morning to find furniture mysteriously rearranged. One guest claimed to have seen the face of the erstwhile captain in the mirror of the ladies' washroom. And according to the inn's current owner, the ghost of Captain Swayze once appeared on CCTV at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when the public house was locked down, standing at the bar in uniform and triggering the camera's motion sensor. Captain Swayze's isn't the only spirit believed to haunt the Old Angel Inn. Several years ago, a bartender had a run-in with what appeared to be the ghost of a 19th century lady. In her interview with me, the bartender described how, while she was taking a garbage bag out the side door during COVID lockdown, she spotted a woman standing at the inn's front door. The woman wore long dark hair and a heavy, antiquated gray dress. Thinking that a customer had arrived, she declared that she would be with her shortly, and quickly completed her chore. She arrived at the front entrance just in time to see the lady walk through the wall in which the foyer fireplace now rests. Several weeks later, the bartender saw the same woman walk through a different wall in the inn's pub. Later, while looking through old photographs of the tavern with the inn's owner, she discovered that a door once stood at the very part of the wall through which the apparition disappeared. Other ghosts said to haunt Niagara-on-the-Lake include another Grey Lady who dwells in the historic Beckenridge Hawley estate, the spirit of Judge Edward Clark Campbell, who supposedly haunts his former office in the old courthouse, an aggressive masculine entity which lurks in the Shaw Theatre, the courthouse's second floor, the sorrowful spectre of a young Edwardian lady who haunts the Prince of Wales Hotel, and the spirits of lighting designer Jeffrey Dallas and stage actress Nancy Kerr, believed to haunt their former workplace, the Royal George Theatre. In the next segment of this series, we'll explore some of the mysteries of Vancouver, British Columbia, from strange creatures spotted in Stanley Park to the iconic Red Lady, said to haunt the Fairmont Hotel, Vancouver.